attention to this. Annette Lyles was 23 when she married William Dorset in June of 2001. He was 62. People in Macon, Georgia talked. They always do. She was working double shifts at the truck stop diner on Route 75. He was a regular. Older than her father would have been if he were still alive. Money in the bank. A house on the north side with 3 bedrooms and a 2-car garage. No kids, no ex-wife, just a man who liked his beer cold and his eggs scrambled. She'd served him breakfast 6 days a week for 9 months before he asked her out. By Thanksgiving, they were married. By Christmas, they'd bought a roadside bar together, one of those places with neon signs in the windows and peanut shells on the floor. They called it Dorset's Tavern. She worked the bar, he drank at it. From the outside, it looked fine. She got out of a studio apartment with roaches and a landlord who knocked on her door too often. He got a young wife who smiled at customers and balanced the books. Macon watched and waited for it to fall apart. It did, just not the way anyone expected. Annette was good at her job. She remembered drink orders, laughed at bad jokes, knew when to cut someone off before they got too drunk to drive home. The regulars liked her. She had that thing, warm enough to feel genuine, professional enough to keep her distance. William was different at the bar than he was at home. At work, he was loud, friendly, the kind of guy who'd buy a round for the kitchen staff on payday. He'd clap people on the back, tell stories about his time in the Navy, call women "darlin'" in a way that towed the line but never quite crossed it. At home, he drank until he passed out. Then he'd wake up angry. The first time he hit her was 4 months into the marriage. She'd burnt the chicken. He threw his plate at the wall, grabbed her by the wrist, shoved her into the refrigerator. She didn't leave. Where would she go? And the next morning he apologized with roses and $200 cash. It got worse. The drinking got heavier. The anger got meaner. By the spring of 2003, she was covering bruises with long sleeves and concealer. Customers didn't notice. Or if they did, they didn't say anything. And this is where we need to stop for a second. Because this pattern, the one where people see something wrong and look away, this happens every single day. Domestic violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in neighborhoods, in small towns, in bars where regulars come in 6 nights a week and see the same woman with the same long sleeves in July. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence reports that 1 in 4 women will experience severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 1 in 4. That means someone you know, someone you work with, someone serving you drinks at your local bar. And here's what makes it worse. The average person in an abusive relationship tries to leave 7 times before they finally get out. 7 times. Because leaving isn't simple. It's not about packing a bag and walking out the door. It's about having somewhere to go, having money, having a safety plan, having people who believe you. Annette had none of those things, but she noticed something else. William had money, a lot of it. Pension from 22 years in the Navy. The bar pulled in decent cash, and his will, she'd seen it once, left open on the desk in his study, had her name on every line. If he died, she got it all. She didn't decide overnight. It built over months. A slap here, a shove there. The time he grabbed her by the hair and dragged her across the kitchen floor because she'd talked to a male customer for too long. The time he locked her out of the house in February wearing nothing but a t-shirt and jeans. And every night, he'd drink himself unconscious at the same booth in the back corner of the bar. The spot where regulars knew not to sit. His booth. His domain. She started thinking about it in the summer of 2004. Really thinking. Not in some vague, desperate way, but with a clarity that scared her. She knew what rat poison looked like. She knew where to buy it. The hardware store 2 blocks over sold it in yellow canisters. Arsenic trioxide. White powder. Tasteless if you mixed it right. She bought the first canister in July. Told the cashier they had rats in the storage room. He didn't ask questions. She tested it once. Just a pinch in his beer one night when he was already 4 drinks deep. He got sick the next day. Stomach cramps. Threw up twice. Blamed it on bad shrimp. The doctor gave him Pepto and told him to come back if it got worse. That's when she knew it would work. Now here's what you need to understand about arsenic poisoning. It's not quick, it's not merciful. Arsenic trioxide works by disrupting cellular metabolism. It prevents cells from producing energy. The body starts shutting down from the inside out. Symptoms start with gastric distress, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Then the neurological symptoms kick in. Tremors, numbness, confusion. The victim loses weight. Their hair falls out. Their skin turns gray. And here's the thing that made arsenic popular among poisoners for centuries. These symptoms look like a lot of other things. Food poisoning, the flu, gastritis, alcoholism. Doctors in 2004 weren't routinely testing for arsenic unless they had a reason to suspect it. Annette knew this, or at least she figured it out. It took 7 months of small doses, a little in his morning coffee, a little in his evening beer. Never enough to kill him outright, just enough to break him down piece by piece. He started losing weight, his hands shook, he couldn't keep food down. The doctor called it gastritis, told him to quit drinking. William laughed, said he'd quit when he was dead. Annette didn't say anything when she heard that. By January, he was barely functional. He'd sit at his booth every night, head on the table, snoring into his empty glass. She'd close up around him, wipe down the bar, count the register, lock the doors. Then she'd wake him up, help him to the car, drive him home, put him to bed, and do it all over again the next night. People felt sorry for her. Poor girl, married to a drunk. She's a saint for putting up with him. Nobody suspected a thing. The thing about small towns is that everyone thinks they know your business. Macon's not huge, but it's small enough that people notice things. When Annette started working at the truck stop diner in 2000, people noticed. Young woman, early 20s, always smiling. The kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes if you looked close enough. She'd moved to Macon from Valdosta with nothing but a duffel bag and $200. No family, no references. Just showed up one day and asked the diner manager if they were hiring. He took one look at her and said yes. She was a good waitress, fast, efficient, never forgot an order. The truckers liked her because she didn't take their shit, but she wasn't mean about it either. She'd laugh at their jokes, pour their coffee, and keep moving. Tips were decent, enough to pay rent on a studio apartment above a laundromat. William started coming in around October 2000. Always ordered the same thing: scrambled eggs, bacon, wheat toast, black coffee. Always sat at the same booth by the window. Always left a $5 tip on a $7 meal. She noticed him because he was quiet. Most of the regulars talked, complained about their jobs, their wives, the weather, whatever. William just ate his breakfast, read the newspaper, paid his bill, left. It took him 6 months to ask her out. He came in on a Saturday morning in April 2001. Same booth, same order. But this time when she brought the check, he asked if she'd like to have dinner with him sometime. She said yes. Not because she was interested, because she was tired. Tired of living in a studio apartment with a broken air conditioner and a bathtub that didn't drain right. Tired of scraping together rent every month. Tired of being alone. And this is something we don't talk about enough. Financial abuse. Economic coercion. The way poverty traps people in dangerous situations. Annette wasn't stupid. She wasn't naive. She was broke and exhausted and saw a way out. According to research from the Institute for Women's Policy Research, economic abuse occurs in 99% of domestic violence cases. Abusers control money. They control access to bank accounts. They prevent their partners from working. They create financial dependence that makes leaving nearly impossible. William didn't start out abusive. They rarely do. He started out generous, paid for dates, offered stability, proposed marriage. The control came later. The violence came later. By the time Annette realized what she'd gotten into, she was already trapped. The first date was fine. He took her to a steakhouse on the edge of town, paid for everything, didn't try anything when he dropped her off. The second date was similar. Third date, same thing. He proposed on the fifth date. She said yes again, for the same reasons. They got married at the courthouse in June. No ceremony, no guests, just a judge and a witness they pulled in from the hallway. She wore a white dress from Target. He wore a suit that smelled like mothballs. They spent their wedding night at his house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a backyard with a deck. It was the nicest place she'd ever lived. The first few months were fine. He went to work at the Veterans Center downtown. She quit the diner and stayed home. Cooked dinner, cleaned the house, watched TV. It was boring, but it was stable, and that felt like enough. The drinking started slow. A beer with dinner. 2 beers. 3. By August, he was finishing a 6-pack every night. By September, he was starting before dinner. The first time he yelled at her was in October. She'd made pork chops and he said they were too dry. He didn't hit her that time, just yelled, loud enough that she wondered if the neighbors could hear. The first time he hit her was November. She'd burnt the chicken. He threw his plate at the wall, grabbed her wrist, shoved her into the refrigerator. The handle caught her in the ribs. She couldn't breathe for a few seconds. He apologized the next morning, brought her roses, gave her cash, said it wouldn't happen again. It happened again 2 weeks later. This is called the cycle of violence. The psychologist Lenore Walker identified it in the 1970s. It has 3 phases: tension building, acute violence, and the honeymoon period. The abuser gets angry. The abuser explodes. The abuser apologizes and promises to change. Then the cycle starts over. And each time the cycle repeats, it gets worse. The tension builds faster. The violence gets more severe. The honeymoon period gets shorter, until eventually there's no honeymoon period at all, just violence and fear. By December, they'd bought the bar. William said it was an investment, a way to make extra money, a place for him to hang out that wasn't the house. Annette didn't want to run a bar, but she didn't have a choice. They needed her to work there because William couldn't do it alone. He drank too much, got too friendly with customers, forgot to order supplies. So she ran it, worked the bar 6 nights a week, poured drinks, broke up fights, cleaned up vomit, went home at 2 in the morning and got up at 9 to do it all over again. William was there every night, always at the same booth in the back, always drinking. Sometimes he'd help out, pour a beer, take an order, but mostly he just drank and watched her work. The abuse got worse. He'd wait until they got home, until the door was closed and the neighbors couldn't hear. Then he'd start, yelling, shoving, hitting. Once he dragged her across the kitchen floor by her hair because she'd smiled at a customer he thought was flirting with her. She thought about leaving. But where would she go? Back to Valdosta? Back to scraping together rent and living in shitty apartments? And what if he came after her? What if he found her? This fear is real. Women are at the highest risk of being killed when they try to leave an abusive relationship. According to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 75% of domestic violence homicides happen at the point of separation or after the victim has left. So when people ask, why didn't she just leave? The answer is simple. Because leaving is when abusers kill their victims. So she stayed, and she started thinking about other options. The hardware store was 2 blocks from the bar. She'd been in there a few times to buy cleaning supplies, mousetraps, light bulbs, stuff like that. In July 2004, she bought rat poison. The cashier barely looked at her, just scanned the canister, took her $20, gave her change. She walked out with it in a plastic bag and drove home. She kept it under the sink in the kitchen, behind the dish soap and the sponges. William never looked under there, never cleaned anything, never even noticed. She tested it once before she committed. Just a tiny amount in his beer one night when he was already drunk. He got sick the next day. Stomach cramps, vomiting. She told him it was probably food poisoning. He believed her. That's when she knew she could do it. She started in August, small doses, a little in his coffee in the morning, a little in his beer at night. Not enough to kill him right away, just enough to make him sick, to weaken him, to make it look like something else. The doctor called it gastritis, told him to stop drinking. William laughed, said the doctor was full of shit, kept drinking. By December, he'd lost 30 pounds. His hands shook, his skin looked gray. He could barely walk from the car to the house without stopping to catch his breath. People at the bar noticed, asked if he was okay. Annette said he had the flu, said he'd be fine soon. He wasn't fine. By January 2005, he was barely conscious most nights. He'd sit at his booth, head on the table, snoring. Sometimes he'd wake up long enough to take a drink. Then he'd pass out again. Annette kept the bar running, kept smiling at customers, kept pretending everything was normal. But she knew it was almost over. February 8th was a Tuesday, slow night, only a handful of customers. By 11, it was just her and William. She walked over to his booth, looked at him. His face was gray, his breathing was shallow. He looked like he was dying already. She pulled the vial out of her apron pocket, poured the rest of it into his glass, put the vial back, walked away. He woke up around midnight, drank it, stood up, collapsed. She called 911, told them her husband had a heart attack, cried on the phone, made it sound real. The paramedics came. They tried, but by the time they got him to the hospital, he was gone. She thought she'd gotten away with it. For 4 months, she thought she was free. Then, Frank Dorset showed up, William's nephew, the one who'd never liked her, the one who thought she was after his uncle's money. Frank pushed for an autopsy. The family didn't want to. The doctor didn't want to. But Frank kept pushing. They exhumed the body in June, ran toxicology tests, found arsenic. And this is where forensic science becomes the game changer. In 2005, toxicology testing had advanced to the point where arsenic could be detected months after death. It accumulates in hair, nails, and bone tissue. Even after a body has been embalmed and buried, forensic pathologists can find it. The Marsh test, developed in 1836, can detect arsenic in parts per billion. Modern techniques like atomic absorption spectroscopy and inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry are even more sensitive. They can find arsenic in samples decades old. This is why poisoners today almost never use arsenic. The science caught up. What worked in the 1800s doesn't work now. Every poisoning leaves a chemical signature. Every toxin has a fingerprint. The police came on a Thursday, asked her to come to the station. She went. She didn't run. There was nowhere to go. They interrogated her for hours. She denied everything at first, said she didn't know how arsenic got into his system, said maybe someone poisoned him at the bar, maybe one of the customers had it out for him. They didn't believe her. They searched her house, found the canister under the sink, found the receipts, found her journal. She broke on the second day, told them everything. The abuse, the fear, the plan, the months of poisoning, the final dose. She cried, said she didn't have a choice, said he would have killed her if she hadn't killed him first. The prosecutor said she could have left, could have called the police, could have gotten a restraining order. She said she tried. She called the police twice. They came, looked around, told William to calm down, left. The restraining order would have been a piece of paper. It wouldn't have stopped him. And this is the truth that our legal system still struggles with. Battered woman syndrome is recognized in some jurisdictions as a defense, but it's inconsistent. Some juries understand it, some don't. Some judges allow expert testimony about the psychological effects of long-term abuse. Some don't. The law expects victims to behave rationally, to document everything, to have proof, to leave at the first sign of violence. But trauma doesn't work that way. Fear doesn't work that way. Survival doesn't work that way. Dr. Lenore Walker, who coined the term battered woman syndrome in 1979, described it as a subcategory of post-traumatic stress disorder. Women in these situations experience learned helplessness. They believe they can't escape. They believe fighting back will make things worse. They believe no one will help them. And often, they're right. Studies show that police response to domestic violence calls is inconsistent at best. Some departments have mandatory arrest policies, some don't. Some officers are trained to recognize abuse patterns, some aren't. The result is that many victims call for help and get nothing. Annette called twice. Both times the police showed up, talked to William, and left. No arrest, no follow-up, no help. The jury didn't care. The trial was in October 2005. 4 weeks. Dozens of witnesses. The defense brought in people who'd seen the abuse. Neighbors, bartenders, a doctor who'd treated her for a broken wrist. The prosecution brought in the receipts, the journal, the autopsy report, the toxicology results. The closing arguments came down to this. Did Annette Lyles have any other option? The defense said no, said she was trapped, said she feared for her life, said this was self-defense, just drawn out over 7 months instead of one violent moment. The prosecution said yes, said she could have left, said she could have gotten help, said she chose to kill him for the money, not out of fear. The jury took 6 hours. Guilty of first-degree murder. The judge gave her life without parole. Annette Lyles is still in prison. She's 51 now. She works in the prison library, reads a lot, doesn't talk much. The bar closed in 2006. The building's a dollar store now. You can still see the outline of the old neon sign on the brick if you look close enough. The case made the news for a few weeks. Then it faded. People moved on. But I keep thinking about how many people saw her with bruises and did nothing. How many times she called the police and they left. How many nights she went home knowing he might kill her. And I keep thinking about the choice she made. Not whether it was right or wrong, just that she made it. And now she's in a cell for the rest of her life, and he's in the ground, and neither of them won anything. That's what gets me. There's no winner here. Just 2 people who destroyed each other in different ways. So what do we do with this? How do we prevent the next Annette Lyles? How do we stop the next William Dorset? First, we believe victims. When someone tells you they're being abused, you believe them. You don't ask what they did to provoke it. You don't tell them to try harder. You believe them, and you help them find resources. Second, we intervene. If you see someone with unexplained bruises, you ask. If you see someone isolated from friends and family, you reach out. If you see someone being controlled or demeaned by their partner, you say something. Third, we fix the system. We train police officers to recognize domestic violence. We fund shelters and support services. We make it easier for victims to leave safely. We hold abusers accountable before it escalates to murder. Because here's the truth. This case didn't have to end this way. If Annette had gotten help when she first called the police, William might still be alive. If the neighbors had intervened, both of them might have had a chance at different lives. But nobody did. And now, one person is dead and one person is in prison for life. And a small town in Georgia has a story it doesn't like to tell. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. They can help with safety planning, finding local resources, and connecting victims to support services. Because the next Annette Lyles is out there right now, working at a bar, covering bruises, thinking there's no way out. And maybe this time, someone will notice, someone will help, someone will change the ending.